Now, as you can probably tell, the garage is looking a little bit different from when you last saw it. And that's because we just installed this brand new mini ramp. This will help us entertain ourselves over the winter and the dark nights. Now, this is going to be part of a longer video or bigger video that I'll be posting on Skills with Phil. This video is just going to be about building this mini ramp and the details of the build. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. Alright, so this is probably going to go on Phil's world. I don't know if this really fits in with Skills with Phil. But we're in my garage, the garage as we were calling it, and we're going to do a little rearrangement before winter comes. Because usually in the winter what we do is on the weekends we go ski, and on the weeknights we would go rock climbing. But with COVID cases rising, I don't think going to the rock climbing gym this year is such a smart move. So we're going to refrain from going to the climbing gym. So to keep us entertained, we're going to do something totally different. We're actually going to build a mini ramp in our garage. Now, we don't have much space, so it's probably not going to be for our bikes. It's actually going to be for our skateboards. A little fun fact is when I was little, I used to skateboard all the time. I'd go to the skate park, I'd have my rollerblades in my backpack, I'd have my skateboard behind my back, and I'd be riding my BMX bike. So when I was at the skate park, I'd switch from BMX to skateboarding to rollerblading. I was much better at BMX than the other two, but that being said, I do like skateboarding, and I've always wanted to have a mini ramp in my yard, but with the snow outside, well, it actually melted, it's probably time to move indoors and build a little mini ramp so we can survive the winter and maintain our sanity. So that's what we're going to try to do. So a little kind of update, we have rearranged this a little bit. I got this pad from my old workshop, so this is now over here, and then we took the bench that was right here and moved it over there to give us a little bit more space. And I think that's a
spider. I got him.
I couldn't see his 8 legs. I only saw 6.
Yeah, I only have 6 legs. We're trying to save you, bud.
Come on, bud.
I'm trying to do a save. You go, bud.
Alright, first things first, we got some lumber in the car. Let's get it out and get situated. Alright, so this is going to be a mini ramp, so it doesn't need to be that big. So we're going to be able to get 2 quarter pipes essentially out of 1 sheet of plywood. So this will be 2 sides and that will be 2 sides. Alright, so for a mini ramp, there's different arcs you can use for the quarter pipe. If you want like a tighter radius, you can use like a 5, which is kind of pushing it, I think. You don't really want to go anything below 5 usually for a quarter pipe because it's really quick. So a standard transition is anywhere between 7 and 5. So because we're limited on space, we're going to go with a slightly quicker radius. Now, since we have a very limited space in here, I think we're going to go with a slightly more abrupt curve. So we're going to go more towards like the 5.5, somewhere in that range curvature, just to maximize our space. Ideally, I'd go with something like a 6, 6.5, but we don't have that luxury because we're trying to make do with the space we have. So, all right, let's go with a, that's 5, let's go with a 66. So this is a 5.5. Yeah, let's bump it up a little bit. Let's go to a 68. I don't know why, 68 seems like a good number. Alright, with a mini ramp, you usually build it on top of a 2x4, so the height of our mini ramp is going to be from here to here, so I'm going to go ahead and mark. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because this right here, this line is actually going to be the base, so like the curve is going to extend up from here. Now I can fit this pencil in here. A lot of people will use a string to do this same thing. Sometimes the string stretches, so you don't get a great arc sometimes, but it still works fine. But so yeah, we're gonna line this pencil up with this line. And then we just do a swing. Wow, this thing rips. I haven't used one of these kinds of pencils in so long. It is literally a perfect foot. I couldn't have guessed that any better. So we're gonna go with a 18-inch deck on the other one, just to give us a little bit more wiggle room. So we've decided we want this 8 feet wide. That's a good standard measurement for a ramp. You think it would be as simple as just putting the studs in and calling it a day, since all those studs measure 8 feet. But the thing is, if you want this to be 8 feet wide, you actually have to account for the thickness of these walls. These measure about 3/4 of an inch, so we need to take off 1.5 inches from each stud for the full width to be 8 feet once we go to put the plywood, which measures 8 feet wide. So that's something to keep into account when you're building a mini ramp, if you ever decide to build one. Since we're going to be making many of these cuts, I'm going to do myself a favor. I'm just going to put a stop on this, that way we don't have to measure every cut. Alright, now that we've got these pieces cut, we can go ahead and start tacking them in place. Alright, so we're about to put our second stringer thingy, whatever you want to call this, on. And the typical distance that you separate these two by is 8 inches. Now, I hate measuring because it's really easy to be off, so I'm going to make my life a little bit easier. This piece, I've made a mark at 8 inches right here, and cut this piece to measure 8 inches when you put it up against another 2x4. So this way, as we work our way up, we have a consistent spacer that makes our life a lot easier. This piece, put it flush against this 2x4. Mark there. Now just to double check, and see, it comes out to 8 inches. Alright, so the one complication that we have is usually you would have a full sheet of plywood. However, I can't fit a full sheet of plywood in my car. So I had them rip it down the middle, so that's 2 feet wide. And the issue is when you try to put it this direction, it doesn't always line up or match at a stringer, which I should have thought of before, but it is what it is. Okay, so we've been looking at this, and before we continue doing anything else, I want to situate this in a spot that makes sense. So we were thinking about going lengthwise here, just the little that we've had to like try to circumvent this to get in and out of the garage door has been very annoying, so that's a no-go. We're going to go ahead and position it probably over here, so it's going to go this way. And you're probably thinking, well, isn't that going to block this? And you'd be right, but the thing is, we could just make stairs. Like, we don't go in this that often that's going to be that big of a deal. Well, we say that now, we'll see how it goes. You know, worst comes to worst, we could always take it apart and put it somewhere else. It's not the end of the world. And if we don't like it, we can change it later down the road. But this is what we're going to do right now and see how it goes. Alright, the one thing you can't tell on camera is this floor is not flat. So if I put this like right here.
And there goes, whee!
The last board you put like this, so you can get the coping on. You want it to stick up above the lip a little bit, and once you put 2 sheets of plywood on this thing won't stick up nearly as much. So the coping gives your skateboard a little bit of a bump to kind of give you a little pop when you're doing ollies. Not that I'm actually going to be able to use it, but I'm trying to build things like it should be so it feels as natural as possible. So the one thing I do need to do is I do need to notch out this piece of wood right here to accommodate for the coping. We're using PVC pipe for our coping. This is definitely not recommended, especially if you're doing something for a commercial project, but it's actually really hard to find like good length coping at the hardware store, and because this is an inside application, I want to try to keep this as quiet as possible, and plastic's a lot quieter, so this should minimize how much noise we make. I think we're going to fill the inside of the ramps with insulation to kind of act as sound dampening, so that way when you're banging on these, like these essentially are just giant drums, so if you can dampen any noise, it'll make a big difference. Alright, so now we're going to start framing out the flat bottom, and this is super simple. All you need to do is 2 pieces on the side and then put a bunch of stringers across. Now, we were lacking in terms of 2x4, so we ended up repurposing this failed furniture project that we had on hand. So this was a 2x4 that we had ripped down to a slightly different size, so we were able to make good use of it. So. Alright, now this is all one piece. Time to put the surface on. Is it nice and flush on the other side? At top.
Yep.
So I mentioned that we couldn't fit full sheets of plywood in my car, which is true. We can fit half sheets of plywood in my car with the doors closed. For that reason, we have a lot more of these joints where the two pieces of plywood meet when we're trying to surface. The issue with that is if you don't have a stud running underneath, well, this is now a weak point. Like, there's no rigidity to this. So even with a second layer over the top, this is likely going to cause some problems down the road. So we ended up going back to the store and getting a few more 2x4s, and we're gonna pull a set of screws up and putting a 2x4 underneath, just so we don't run into that issue down the road. But I also discovered I could actually pretty easily strap these full sheets of plywood to my roof. I've always been a little hesitant to do that because I didn't know if there was a good way to strap it down to my roof, and we figured it out, so now we should have no issues carrying full sheets of plywood in the future. So the top layer is going to be normal full sheets of plywood. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the plywood on, and we're going to stagger it. So we started from that side and worked our way towards that end. This time we're going to start on that end and work our way over to that side. That way our seams are a little bit staggered, and that should give us a smoother transition, because otherwise you'd have more of like an octagon feeling skate ramp, which is not what you want. And in fact, some people will even put these at a diagonal or even lay these in a different direction to avoid those seams, but we're not going to do that because the plywood bends better in one direction than it does the other. For the decking, we're using these shorter screws, and for when we were like nailing the studs to the sides, we're using a longer screw. But for this, you definitely want to use an impact driver versus a typical drill. It just works out a little bit easier. So if you have the option, or if you need to pick up either a drill or a impact driver, get the impact driver, because the impact driver drives these a lot more easily than a drill would. That being said, the drill does have the advantage because you can set it to have a certain clutch. So the clutch will prevent some of these screw heads from going in too far. Like right here, that's perfect. That one went in way too far. And this is where the clutch could come in handy because it would prevent it from going in that far. So there's advantages to both. And this is definitely one of the more tedious parts of the build. So if you do have a friend, or if you have a second drill or impact driver on hand, it's worth to invite somebody over and help you out with this because it's pretty annoying. And one thing that we've done to make the process go a little bit more quickly is on this strip, you can't really see it, but we've gone ahead and marked out the locations where we want the screws to be. So as we go down, we line it up with a stud, and then we just mark out where each screw is going to be, and do that for all the screw holes before we start screwing. That way the process goes a little bit quicker, because it's really annoying to have to stop, mark everything, drill, stop, mark everything, drill. Just little time savers like that will make your life a little easier. I want to do something to kind of soundproof this because Right now, if we're to skate this, it sounds like a giant drum. So we got some insulation here, which helps kind of deaden the sound. So we're going to throw a lot of insulation inside of here to quiet this down a little bit. It's not going to make it completely soundproof, but it should kill a little bit of the noise, so it's not that annoying, or a little bit less annoying. Not perfect, but definitely helps.
Yeah, that's echoey. Ready?
Alright, moment of truth. How bad did we mess up? Let me see my other board. My other board has wider tires. It might.
Ooh, these are tires now.
Tires, yes. Thank you for. I'm glad I went as wide, gave this as much flat bottom as possible, because like even as is, it's still
A little cramped.
It's cramped, which makes it a little bit harder to skate because you're always on your toes. Like for a good skater, it's probably no problem, but like for me, it's hard to get set up for my next thing. Definitely hear it creaking a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Is that the wood just settling, or?
It could be. I guess we went with a 3/8 inch plywood and 2 sheets of it. So that might be, I mean, that does bring us up to 3/4 of an inch in terms of total thickness, but it definitely has a little bit more flex than I was thinking. This is a new board to me. I haven't gotten a new skateboard in ages. I'm wearing a helmet because I was trying to prevent crashing if it's coming in over, not bumping my head. Heart rate at. There's no, okay. I still say there's no way it's 78. It's gotta be higher than that.
He's probably taking a read. Give it a second.
There we go.
123.
That's kind of more in line with what I expected. Alright, since I built this, I've definitely gotten a lot more comfortable on the skateboard, so I'll just give you a quick update. That I'm really pumped about. That's been kind of a big goal for me since I started skating. I mean, I never used to be able to do that, so I've already learned something new. I've also learned something else. Been able to do a tail stall. Here, let me show. I can do it, but I don't have it on lockdown, so. But this thing's also fun on my mini rocker bike. Well, I got some work to do on that too. So as far as how much floor space does this take up, so obviously it's 8 feet wide and it's 15 and 3 inches wide or long. So I wouldn't go any smaller than this, to be honest, because like that flat bottom is really tight. That flat bottom measures 53 inches, and it's really important to have a flat bottom to help you set up between each ramp, because it's the tighter these are together, the less time you have to set up. So this as is really tight, but for what it is, it's actually super fun. I also mentioned that the total height is 2 feet, but the height of the ramp itself is 20 inches and a half. That's to accommodate for this 2x4 that it sits off the ground on. Now you might be wondering, why do I have that 2x4? So the transition from the quarter pipe to the flat bottom is smoother, because without a consistent grade, it's really hard to have these taper off into the floor, and especially since the floor is uneven across the whole length, that makes it even more difficult. So it's just easier to get a smooth transition by building it this way. Plus, I just think it looks better. Coping, I'm probably, well, I will cut this eventually, but I think I'm gonna put some bigger pipe on this. So I think this is like 1.5 inches or something. Yeah, it says 1.5 inches right there. I'm probably gonna put like some 2-inch coping if I can find any, or maybe some 3-inch, because this right here is too small. It doesn't stick up above the deck as much as I thought it would. So the problem with that is it's not doing its job. You want it to like pop your trucks off like a bump jump on a bike. You want it to pop you up as you're going up and over, and then from this side you want it to hold your wheels in place, and it's not doing that. So yeah, we'll fix that. Since we've built this, I've been coming out here almost nightly to get a quick session in, and it's super fun. While it's dark out and you can't do anything outside, you can come in here, throw on the lights, and just do something fun and get your heart rate up, breathe a little bit. Not only that, it's good for during the day when it's raining outside like it is right now. So this will hopefully help maintain our sanity, especially with COVID cases rising. Normally we would go to the rock climbing gym, but obviously it's probably not the smartest thing to be doing right now. So for the time being, we have this, and as I mentioned, this will be part of a larger video that I'll be throwing up on Skills with Phil, my main channel. But as always, my name is Phil Metz. Thanks for playing bikes with me today, or skateboards. I'll see you guys next time.